Good morning, SML. We got a special 8 a.m. pre-playoff SML countdown. Uh, Straw and AJ's battling some mosquitoes out there just to be on here at 8 a.m. What's going on, guys?
What's up? What's up? Glad to be
What's
back.
up, man? Yeah, yeah. This pollen has been kicking my butt, man.
Yeah, I'll bet. All right, so we'll get started, and we'll start. Let's start with hearing a lot of talk about how the league needs bottom guys. I think we've heard Matt say it a couple times. The bottom guys, they're the important ones. Leagues need them. Um, do you think sometimes they get a pass on gameplay issues because they lose so much? We kind of saw it with Biz. You remember when Biz was all of a sudden started winning and he was going to the NFC playoffs, and man, it took like 2 games and he was gone. As soon as everybody, the lights were on his gameplay, he was gone. So, what do you guys? Do you think there's something to that? And we'll start with you, Straw.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think, you look for Sim Madden leagues, one, because you want a great community, and but two, guys are competitive, right? And want to play Madden and want to have fun playing the game, but want to beat each other, right? And we all hate losing. I think you guys talked about it really well on After Dark, where it's okay to be upset if you lose. Like we're competitive, right? And so I think when you got some of the guys that like perpetually lose, I mean, I I think the SML runs rules pretty fairly. Like things are kind of black and white. You see everybody, you know, no matter the situation, sort of getting rules struck down on them. But I could see it being overlooked, right? Like people aren't checking in on the league as a whole isn't looking at some of the bottom guys
Yeah,
to see their stats or what's going on. How many times they're throwing it to a tight end and running back versus receivers or something. I mean, because if you haven't won a game, like you know, um, so I could definitely see that. And I mean, that's just smacking rules down on someone who's already down. I mean, that feels like pushing someone out the league, in my opinion.
yeah.
Because when after losing so much, that could be rough. So I can see it. I do think the SML is pretty fair on rules, in my opinion. But I could definitely see that.
All right, AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting thing. I remember coming into to the SML. I was kind of new to Sim Madden and all that, but there's a lot of things in the SML that exist like in a vacuum. Like a lot of the taboo things or the things that you would think would be fine that aren't. Like for instance, like QB sneaks. It's like if you just got into the SML, like, and you played in a bunch of other leagues, like you would think QB sneaks are totally fine. You get in here and then like the whole chat blows you. Oh, so and so's a QB sneaker, and you're like, man, what the heck? Like so like stuff like that. Some of it's you kind of learn it. Like I give a lot of the primer guys a pass because they kind of have to learn some of the quirks of SML of like what's taboo and what's not, or what's acceptable and what's not. Some of these things you only learn by somebody being like, dude, that's cheesy. Um, and then but a lot of it is yeah, I think some of the players that aren't as good do get somewhat of a pass on gameplay. However, I think SML chat does a pretty good job of throwing stones at people that abuse certain things. I mean, Biz caught a lot of slack just
Yeah,
I mean in chat. And part of the reason why he got booted is because he never adjusted. The whole league's bashing the guy for going 20 drags a game and um, running a bunch of shotgun inside zones. Um, and he never adjusted. And it got to the point where, Prime had to make a decision. Um, you know, we blasted Fig on on halfback and wide receiver passes, and he doesn't do it anymore. So that's a testament to Fig because, like, okay, apparently the guys don't really like it, so I'm just gonna stop doing it. Um, um, so I think at a certain point the league will police itself, and if those people don't adjust, to the majority's opinion on how things are played, time will eventually step in. But they may creep along longer than they should if they don't win as many games. It's definitely more apparent because they're being commentated games and you got Prime reviewing them too and stuff like that. But you know, that's just how it is. It's more apparent when you're better and you're under the spotlight. You can kind of creep along a little longer, but eventually it'll come to a head. Um, if you keep abusing certain things.
Yeah, maybe get a pass was not the right word, dude, but more they fly under the radar. I mean, you're prime
Yeah,
admin. You know that when there's a guy that's losing, you know, 15 games a season, like what was his Orange Sherm or whatever his name was, the Commanders guy. Like nobody's watching his games, so nobody even knows. Nobody's gonna complain after the game when they won by 30. So you're not being pointed in that direction. So unless you just happen to catch one of his streams or Gilbert, like the dude loses 18 games in a 17 game season. Nobody's watching his games to see, what's he abusing because clearly whatever it is, it doesn't work anyway. So yeah, maybe more fly under the radar is what I mean, and then they get put on that spotlight. Biz in the playoffs and Matt calling out every single play, which was easy because it was drag or inside zone, but uh, it was. I think maybe that's more what I meant with that. All right, so
Yeah. Well, wait, one other thing I want to say,
yeah,
based off what AJ said, was that I do think that whether you're a top guy, bottom guy, mid level guy, one thing that I found that I think most guys in the SML want to do is give a good experience of the game, right? Like, and I think that's to AJ's point, where if guys are like, "Oh, this is cheesy," especially because the game might switch game to game. Like, shotgun runs last Madden seemed like completely overpowered. Um, I think they've tapered off a little bit, right? And it doesn't feel as bad, even though you obviously should still mix it up. But people should, I think people, I know I look to like, how do I win or lose? I feel like I'm a fun person to play because I want that experience. I'm not gonna just run a play just because I know it's gonna work. I'm like,
mhm.
oh, let me try this, let me try that, let me switch it up. And I think most guys, even if they're bottom guys, look to that too, especially if they get called out and they switch it up. I think if you don't switch up, that's where things can happen. Because if it does come, it'll come from somebody who played you, and they'll put it in chat. So
uh,
Yep. All right. So moving on to something kind of different. What are your thoughts on all these force wins? I think this last week we saw 6. Now I know AJ, you guys actually had a force win, but it was because the internet dropped or power went out.
yeah.
But it feels like, and this is every season. It feels like, and then especially as we move to the end of the cycle. So now you're talking like we're in the last 19ish games of the Madden 26 cycle, but we're seeing a lot of force wins come in at the end. What do you guys think about that as far as being at the end of the season or towards the end of the cycle? Just more guys really not caring as much about trying to get the game. Come September, they're trying to do whatever they can to get a game in, and in this time of year, it's just I couldn't get it in.
yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to meaningful games. I think when you when you get to season 8 of a cycle, and speaking on some of the guys that maybe aren't in the picture or whatever, it's just a lot easier to say, you know what, this isn't going to work for the schedule, which a lot of people's schedules a little bit more busy in the summer because they're traveling or doing things on the weekend or even weeknights. The days are longer. I think that's just part of it. It's a little bit of Madden fatigue, a little bit of this isn't worth my time because I'm not anywhere close to in playoff contention or I'm traveling. I mean, I think that's really all it is. It's people just a little bit. It's a little easier to pull the trigger on, let's just fair sim or force win when you're not in the picture and you're kind of just getting tired of the game. You're checking out. Some people are. I think the people that are continuously in the playoffs they might say, oh, it's summer and but they're still checked in.
Mm-hmm.
They're still playing. They're still winning. And they're still playing all their games.
Yeah, you don't go
Um,
14-3 not caring.
yeah, I mean, you're carving the time out and you're playing the game and just because it's August or I mean because it's June, or in October, it doesn't. You're still loading up the game with the intention to win it. So I don't buy I'm not taking it seriously this time. I do think scheduling wise, it does play a picture, part. People are just busier, or if you think you can forfeit a game and you don't really care or whatever, it's the time. It's that time of the year. It's just a little bit easier to pull the trigger.
Yeah. What do you think, Straw?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. There's y- you get to a point where your team is now it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's probably not gonna get much. Well, it's not gonna get better from where you have it. There's not enough time, even if you did draft now amazingly. Um, Everyone's teams are good, and you're not gonna beat the guys that you can't beat is the feeling, right? And so I think with then you add all of the things on top of it. So if we take vacations out, but just summer schedule, fatigue, all the things that AJ said, I do think that kind of starts to play into like, just take the fourth win. Oh, it's okay, and that sort of approach, which I get. It's unfortunate, but I get it. But yeah, so I think I agree with AJ overall. I think all of those factors kind of lead to like, oh, our times don't kind of align. All right, just sports win it versus before people trying to, in September people are making sure it works.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is I think it does a little bit of a disservice to the league. Like we had week 18, you had Torque and yourself, one game out of a playoff spot. Oh, let's see what Tug does. Oh, he's getting a force win. Now MMX had a vacation or whatever, but it could have just as easily been, he didn't feel like playing because their schedules didn't line up, and so I think the force wins. It, I don't like when it impacts the playoff race, especially when we get down to like the last 3 weeks of the season, and you got three guys fighting, and one of them's getting force wins every other week. That's kind of rough, but um, all right. So
That is
oh, go ahead.
definitely worse than last week.
Yeah,
That's how it always frames out, unfortunately.
yeah. It just happens that for some reason schedules don't align in week 17 and 18. I'm sure it's not because the season's over. All right. So talking about scheduling, we've heard some about scheduling, some about the flexibility of scheduling. Some guys not very flexible. Guys talking about when they pick their team draft next year, they're going to look for scheduling. They don't care who's in their division as long as it's good scheduling. Um, what are your thoughts on scheduling, like flexibility and how it should look, or even like what are some reasonable hours like that you should be trying to schedule within? Like I played meets and he told me 9:45 is too late to play. Um, I don't even know if that like that to me that's not even reasonable. Like you cut your window off then. But what do you think about guys like being flexible and how that should kind of come together?
I think uh, it's definitely tough because everyone has different work schedules, work hours. Like I know at one point, Fig and Woods, I think both did night shifts, extremely brutal night shifts. It's tough because like you have done a lot to get into the SML, right? Like you
Right.
know that this is what you're coming into. I think it's very similar to the gameplay where we're trying to build a good experience for everybody, right? And so it's mixing that within your actual work and life schedule. Um, so it's tough on that end. Like I get both sides of it. I do think evening times, most people could probably carve out some kind of evening slot. Because most people probably have um, regular work hours. So I think that evening time is usually what most people expect. Um, but I think it gets tricky when the work hours sort of are not in alignment with that. But I'd usually say that evening is where people should be the most flexible in thinking about others. Like, okay, yes, I know my schedule, but I chose to come and be in this league. I want to, continue to pour into this community and what that looks like. And so I know people are available these hours. How can I make myself available for these hours mostly? Right. And then I have my specialty hours maybe that I can also play if that's not available for folks. But I know I try to be the most flexible. Um, but I kind of can do that. I know some people might not be in that position.
Yeah. AJ, you have AJ o'clock is named for you, but we've seen you play outside of those hours. What do you think about that? Is somebody that's maybe got a more rigid schedule that they try to follow?
Yeah, I mean, when I offer my availability, I offer what truly would be ideal for me. However, a lot of times, depending on the like some opponents, I'll offer my availability knowing they can play it and it's convenient. Like if I'm playing a West Coast guy, I'm it's gonna be fine. I don't feel bad sending them my hours, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But if it's meets or if it's or even you bomber or a few other guys that maybe have their evenings, whether they're going to bed or they're spending time with their wife or whatever, I get it. Like I look like ideally I can play within this time. However, if I need to play earlier, I can. Um I think really like if you had to give a general hours for SML that would be acceptable, like a normal playtime, it would be, like, somewhere between 7 and 11, and that kinda covers all time zones, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think if you're in that range, you can usually get a game played. Um, for me personally, I like to come home, eat dinner, and spend time with my son and my wife, put him to bed, and then I can play. But sometimes I'm playing with my son, throwing balls at my head while I'm playing a game if I'm playing a little earlier, so
We need to
it's just
schedule
part
earlier
of it.
then.
Which is fine. Um, I think that's the flexibility people need to have. It's just like offer your ideal times. If your ideal times don't work, then we flex. You know what I mean? I know I get the AJ clock thing, but usually I don't ever miss playing somebody. I'll figure it out, and if I can't, then I'll give a force win. I understand that mine's kind of later for the East Coast guys. Central Time, I have no issues. For West Coast, I have no issues. I think Meats is probably the hardest guy I have to schedule with
Yeah.
on weeknights. Weekends are a non-issue, period. Um, but I think that if everybody treats it like that, offer your ideal times, and if they can't do that, then just flex a couple hours here or there. It's just that simple. And if you are that rigid, then yeah, you maybe are a pain for your opponent to schedule with because everybody's got their own set of priorities and things they need to take care of in real life. And if you have to flex a couple times out of 17 games a season, I think it's okay. Communicate with your wife or communicate
Yeah.
with whoever you need to communicate to and be like, hey, I'm just going to play a quick 45-minute Madden game, or if you're Matt, a 30-minute Madden game, whatever. Um, and then move on with your life. It's not that big of a commitment.
Yeah, I think, and kind of like what Straw said, like you've done a lot to get to SML. Like everyone wants to be. There's a whole league of people right now that want to be in your spot. So, you would think you would make a little more effort um, to get games in. But all right, so let's switch gears here from scheduling. We got the playoffs coming up. Who is your most underrated player? And this doesn't have to be playoff teams, but most underrated and most overrated player in the SML. We'll start with you, AJ.
Underrated. Had to think about this one. Um, and he hasn't done much to prove it this cycle, but I was going to say Woods. Um, I think Woods is just severely underrated. I think if didn't have some crazy job where he worked weird hours and could be more invested, he'd be making some more playoff runs. I mean, the guy's won a couple Super Bowls. If you look at his schedule, and he kind of flies under the radar this cycle, but like he'll beat people,
Yeah.
and then he'll lose to people he shouldn't lose to. Um, and he's just kind of all over the board. But my underrated would be Woods. And again, I reiterate that I think if he wasn't working nights and kind of have a weird schedule and playing out of hotels sometimes, we'd see a more competitive Woods as far as in the playoff races. Um, and maybe I don't know, maybe next cycle we'll get Woods of a couple cycles ago where he was wrecking people with the Eagles.
Yeah, two
Um,
cycles in a row.
yeah, 2 cycles in a row. Um, Overrated. Um, this one's kind of tough. But I think recency wise it works. I was gonna say Eddie. Um, and a lot of it's Eddie overrating himself, I think.
Yeah.
Which I like Eddie. He's a fiery guy, so like, that's good to have people like that in the league, and he's confident in himself. Um, but I mean the guy made the Super Bowl, which is great. But having just my personal experience playing him, I think he's a little overrated. And maybe it's just a matchup thing. Sometimes matchups are a big deal.
Yeah, we know
Um,
about that.
yep, we definitely know about
We
that.
do.
Um, but yeah, I'd say Eddie, and a lot of it I think is probably just him beating his own chest a little bit.
Yeah, he
And
kind of overrates himself.
I respect Eddie. He's a good player. Yeah, I, that would be my pick if I had to pick one.
All right, Straw. Who do you have as underrated and overrated?
Um, these are I'm gonna go with two that I've actually talked about before. Um, even though I think they're a little easy. Um, but for underrated, I'm gonna go with Torque.
Okay.
And the reason I'm gonna go with Torque is because when he first uh took over the Steelers, I was saying, hey, Torque's not that bad. Like he's actually, playing some good ball. He just can't win it, and he finally had a season where he, went kind of far. Um, and I think he's still Torque. And I think that's how most of the league looks at him, but I don't think he plays too bad. And I do think he took our division overall kind of up a step. Um, now that's was it this is not saying too much because of the previous Steelers
Yeah.
owners who really dismantled that team, but I think he's better than what his cycle has been. And that's why I would give him the underrated nod. And for overrated, I'm gonna have to go with KP. And the reason that I say that is because of where he was sitting in the cycle. I thought he should be lower. But he won a Zimbardi, which only three
Yeah.
people have won a Zimbardi. So I mean, I know some people say that that automatically puts you above everybody, but I don't think that that's not necessarily how I'd frame it if the rest of your cycle hasn't been great. So that's who I'd kind of say I feel is overrated.
Okay. I'm gonna go with. So I did like Woods for the underrated, but another one that I'm gonna throw in there, and maybe this will be a little bit of a surprise. Not nice. I have
Yeah,
him
I agree.
as one of the underrated ones. He gets a lot of flack in chat because he trades all his picks, literally all of them. Even if he then he'll say, "Oh no, I have 3 seconds." By the time the draft comes around, he's got nothing. So he gets a lot of flack for that, and people trade for his pick. But I feel like he's a I don't want to say fringe playoff team, but he's a guy that could go on a run and become a playoff team. Now the only playoff run he had this cycle, he was still sub 500. But I mean, he was a guy. You were in Primer when he was there. He was a playoff team in Primer, which
He's competent on offense.
yeah,
If he could just figure out how to play an inkling of defense, I swear to you, he will beat
yeah.
people.
If he could play defense and maybe have some picks to build a team, because his
Yeah,
team is one of those that's just going to continually go down as the cycle goes.
I
Um,
treading
never
water
even know
there.
who he gets. I don't even know who he gets for these picks, dude. You go through his
yeah,
roster, you're like, wait, who did you get?
it's kind of like the
He's addicted to the
Steelers with
process.
yeah, it's the Steelers before Torque. Like Torque asked me, he's like, look at my team. And I'm like, oh, you had Smokey there, who was a top 5 pick. You had Nightcrawler, who was the top 1 pick every year. How do you not have anything? Like it's very similar. But I think he's one of the more underrated. I think if he gets a team next year that's not the Saints, and maybe a team that doesn't need as much work, because I don't think the team building is really his thing. Because he's, like I say, dumps the draft, and that's probably the biggest thing you need to build a team is your draft. And
Hey, sometimes you just need a season or two in the SML to figure out
yeah.
what everybody's doing to win, and and then you get it figured out. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah, I
just
feel like you learn something every cycle.
yeah,
So and you've seen, actually, if you watch his cycle, the last couple seasons, he's starting to put it together. This year, I think he had 8 wins. I think he had 7 or 8 last season. So he's getting there.
yeah.
Um, so I have him as my most underrated, and I'm actually going to stick in the AFC East for most overrated, and I'm going to go with Slice. Now he's got a 12-win team. But man, you're playing DW, who's giving you a force win every week. You're playing Trick. You're playing Eddie, who was gone for 3 weeks, and I don't know if he got a force win during that time. But you're not playing anybody really good, and he had a fourth place or third place schedule, which in that division is pretty bad. Um, so I think he's probably one of the more overrated. I think, and again, I think that's by himself. I saw him put in chat, like, I think it was yesterday. I'm back in the playoffs. All things are as they should be. I think him and Eddie would go back and forth, which we've pretty much seen. So I have him as one of the overrated players in SML. I did like the
Both
KP one too.
both those guys are really like volatile players.
Yeah,
You know, they can be really good and they can not be. So
and
it's just kind of yeah.
feeding off a it's the Weenie Hut division. Like there's no, I don't even think it was for a little bit. I think you could have argued NFC East, AFC East, but I think it's pretty much solidified as the AFC East at this point.
Hey man, we finally got Tiny in the playoffs,
That's
man.
right, Tiny. Which I don't know which side that argues for, but yeah, Tiny's in the playoffs. That's not helping the NFC is stronger narrative, but
Mhm.
um, all right. So we were gonna finish there, but we've got one more topic because I saw Doink put it in chat last night, and he said it's laughable that Tiny got more votes versus Steele than he did versus AJ. Do you think he's right with that, AJ?
He's probably right, but like man, Doink hates Tiny. Like he just really hates Tiny. It's so apparent. You know, the poll posted at 11 p.m. at night after honestly the kickoff video was like I wouldn't even have noticed that. So I think he dissects Tiny every little thing
Yeah,
Tiny does. I think he hates his guts to be honest. But um I think Doink I mean Doink historically is a better player than Tiny, so I could see somebody maybe like getting a little chip on their shoulder from that. So I mean just let the chip be there, you know, it kind of fuels you, you know, like when I see people pick against me that like, Matt picks against me every time, I know he does it just to troll, and so I it's a chip, you know?
yeah.
Embrace it, you know, move on, um, and a lot of people too, like, a lot of people are voting Tiny like it's a you're voting for the
The
you know,
special
the
ed kid to like score a
special
touchdown.
ed kid that gets run
Yeah,
out on the football field before the high school game, you know,
yep.
like, you're just like,
And everybody just like falls
"Yes,
down and lets him
yes,
score.
this is
Yeah,
his moment, we're voting for him,
yeah.
we're rooting for the underdog, everybody wants to see him beat Steele." Um Yeah, I think yeah, you nailed it there with that
Yeah.
analogy.
All right, Straw. What do you think? Is it laughable?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it with that, where I know sometimes I pick people who I want to win, like, "Oh, I'm
Hmm.
rooting for you, let's go," versus who I think is gonna win. But also, I mean, I think that, Doink as a player has, like, kind of flown below the radar as in terms of his cycle, the seasons, his gameplay to for me at least. The only time I really see him is when he's getting into it with somebody or
Yeah,
have really paid attention to his team. So I think that is also a part of it where, to your point, it's not only Tiny, he's been, like, spotlighted this whole cycle, from sometimes playing well, and we're like, "Wait, what the heck? What is Tiny doing?" To then just completely imploding, or like, "Oh yeah, there's Tiny." So I think everyone is rooting for him right now. Like, "Yeah, let's do it, beat Steel." We're doing, I think most people kind of expect AJ's been playing great towards the back half of this cycle, and most people probably just expect him to beat Doink. So I think it's a mix of those things.
yeah. I think it could be. I don't think it's laughable though. Even if you went off who you think is gonna win, um, Tiny beat Doink, so it's not like Doink is just this way better player. Tiny beat him, and Doink was in it. Like it wasn't like it was a week 18 resting your starters. Like Doink needed to win. He had to end up winning week 18 to keep his playoff spot. So it was a must win game for both, and Tiny won it. AJ's the 2 seed, Steele's the 3 seed. So technically, Tiny would be playing the easier opponent if you go
Yep.
by seeding. So I don't think it's that laughable. And I
Yep.
think Doink is maybe he's not self-aware of how far he's fallen this cycle because he was easily like a 500 600 player. He's 5 games better than Tiny. Tiny's won 50 games this cycle. Doink's won 55. It's not like there's some big gap between the two of them. They're basically at this point they're the same player. So
Wow.
I don't think it's that laughable that Tiny got more votes.
Yeah.
I think the only thing maybe coming from Doink's point of view is he usually plays me really close. I struggle with him sometimes. So he may just from a matchup standpoint be thinking like this is a toss up game or whatever, which is I think fair to think if you're him. But yeah, if you're looking at it from the league's perspective, yeah, I don't. I think you nailed it there.
Yeah, at this point they're the same player. So we'll see how it goes though. We've seen the polls have been very wrong at times, and Straw is well aware of that. Uh, so, but that's gonna do it for this episode. We got, I think the first playoff game is, I want to say it's at noon. I might be wrong. It might be a little late. It might be 3 o'clock.
No, we got one. Me and Doink play at noon.
Oh yeah,
That's right. Yeah,
yeah.
you
There
guys
it
play
is.
at noon. Somehow there's not commentary on that, so I'm gonna go ahead and probably jump on that if I can. Straw, you want to do it?
Yeah, yeah. I could jump on that too.
All right,
Actually.
we'll just go ahead and do that one then.
Nice.
So noon. Uh, it looks like you and Doink can find out how laughable it is, and me and Straw will be on the call, so it'll be perfect. We can eat our words then if he pulls it off. But I think we'll all be rooting for you. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. This early morning episode, and enjoy the playoffs.